All right, so it's recording now.
Okay.
Here we go.
I am Raheem Snow, the owner of Remembrance Studio as well as Studio Snow, doing both spirituality through Remembrance Studio and technical and software consulting through Studio Snow.
And I am Alonzo Brewington, also known as the Cocoa Nomad. I am a digital nomad. I've been traveling the world for the last 5 years. I do consulting and software development, in addition to just various creative projects that just come into my purview of spark my brain. And this is our first creator chat. It's the creative studio, as it were.
So today's topic is going to be quick takes.
Yeah, so this is something that you brought up to me, Raheem, in the last, I want to say, as part of we do a weekly accountability meeting. And actually, we've kind of stepped it up in the last few weeks because we've got some projects we want to get out. So we're meeting a little more frequently. But one of the suggestions was that came from you. I was having trouble with sort of the blog posting. So it was getting lost in the mix. And I wanted to make these long form blog posts, but I was trying to find out when I could get these ideas out of my head and just sort of languish in like a project management tool somewhere or a journal like Day One. And you suggested quick takes. So explain what this quick takes idea is.
So the whole idea is, if you think you want to write a very long blog post that it's got pillar content, which means it's going to be something foundational to your industry, it's going to have relevancy for a long period of time. It's not something you want to timestamp on. It needs to be like a core kind of, instructional information, knowledge about what it is that you do. You could end up thinking, outlining, drafting, redrafting, rewriting that for weeks on end before you feel like, it's in a good enough shape for you to share with the world. The issue comes in, and there's definitely value to that, but the issue comes in is right now somebody needs a little bit of your information. And it would be good if you could just take a chunk, little small bite of that larger chunk and share it with them now, in whatever conversational, informal format that they could read, they could benefit from, they could give you some feedback, they could ask you some questions, and that will start the feedback loop on, that whole topic, and that'll help you actually write that larger post that you want to write.
So let's talk a little bit about this, because when you presented this to me, my first thing was, okay, yeah, I'll do a quick take, but I'll just make a little entry in my journal and it just sits there. But I don't think that's what you're suggesting. I think you're suggesting publishing this quick take, getting it out in the world, because as you said, someone can benefit even from the nugget of the idea before you flesh it out to this long, like 3,000 word blog post or whatever its final form is.
Exactly. And it also kind of helps you clarify your own thinking, get you used to pushing content out and, letting people consume it now. And so you're kind of like always sharing, repeatedly, and you're not, there isn't like this one thing that you share and then there's silence and then there's other thing you share. So this is a more of a kind of daily or, every other couple of days conversation that keeps happening. So on a week, you've shared, a handful of things with your audience.
Okay, yeah. And so one of the things I actually liked about this when you mentioned it is I was already starting to do a little more posting in terms of other social media. So outside of the blog, I started recording these video shorts for Instagram and YouTube, actually, because YouTube now has this shorts thing. So it's like 15 seconds to a minute. And this reminded me of that. And I was like, oh, okay, because I was really struggling with a way to see how this could fit in. And on the blog post, if I were to do this, now I can create this quick take that maybe 300, 500 words, just me getting out this thought. And I can do this on a frequent basis. So in terms of the website, say I have this website and I have the blog, how do you use this in terms of like frequent posts or making these things available? You are you doing this? You mentioned that you can do this a few times a week, and I guess my it's a two-part question. It's like that I think you've already answered, but the second part of this is how does this fit within the overall like strategy of like creation of your content creation? Do you periodically go back on a schedule, or does it happen when sort of the idea hits you? Like, do you have a tickler file or something like that? How do you manage that?
So I think, having some kind of tool that says these are kind of my little microblog snippets that I want to share, and just put those in one folder. You know, when you start seeing that some of them are related and you start seeing a pattern, you could pull those out into another kind of article folder, or a longer blog form folder, and develop those into a 1,000 word, 2,000 word, 3,000 word article that really goes deep into that topic. But having kind of like this quick take folder of all, you get ideas, right? You're walking from
Yeah.
your home to your cafe, or your grocery store or something, or you're taking a shower or something, and boom, some idea comes. It'd be good to just jot that down real quick, and then put some sentences around it, and then just share it with the public, or speak it into your phone, and then you've got all these audio messages to yourself. Or if you're able, do a quick video, like you said, YouTube shorts, a minute long, whatever it is, just kind of just sharing that thought. um, Seth Godin is a pretty good example of somebody who does that. He's been blogging for years. He's one of the kind of the long time enduring bloggers, and he's a big believer in this type of activity that clarifies his own thinking. And sometimes I get an email from him that's got like 5 sentences. That's
Okay.
it.
So he's also using it in his email list as
Yes.
well.
Yes. And
Okay.
he's got 12 books, right? He's got 12 books, tons of videos, tons of, content that he puts out. But on a daily basis, he's like sharing a couple thoughts next day, couple thoughts next day, couple thoughts. And I think that's really valuable, not just for him, but also for his audience.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's definitely something I'm integrating into my workflow. So this is very helpful for me as a creator to sort of have a place to put these sort of germs of ideas before they're totally fleshed out, not requiring it to be, like you said, 1,000, 1,500, 3,000 word post. I'm not quite ready for that, but there is enough substance there that it is worth sharing.
Absolutely. And if we can kind of like go back in time a little bit, if we look at kind of ancient literature, some of them are just a series of aphorisms, is what they're, called. And they're literally a few sentences, you know? And so it's like number one, aphorism, number two, aphorism. Uh, and so, like people uh, thought in this way and wrote in this way and shared it in this way. And it seems like what we're trying to do is say, within our own unique industries, what are some things that we could talk about in this aphorism way, that is just this encapsulated nugget of an idea, one idea, with some supporting sentences, and just push it out there, push it out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and one of the hosts remarked that they thought that a lot of modern sort of business books and self-help books were really could be boiled down to like, an aphorism or two. It's like they just padded all of these pages. Like, oh, you could have sold me this in like a couple of paragraphs. It just like,
So much padding, so much padding. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is, um, you know, every time. So, my my first book was, kind of like the book of my heart, and it had a lot of things that I wanted to say in it. So it went up to 250 pages, so it's got a lot of content. But I don't want to keep writing 250-page books,
yeah.
because I think there's other topics that can be boiled down, like you said, to you know, much less. So I was looking at this kind of like 100-page mark for, you know, what I could do, you know, in that with that constraint. Okay. So what it does then is it says, you don't have all the time in the world to create this content. You don't have all the space in the world. You don't want to write 500 pages of it. What you want to do is think about the audience and think, they don't have a lot of time. They're not trying to read War and Peace over here.
Yeah.
You know, so in 100 pages, what could you teach them about this topic, and then this topic, and then this topic? And so now you've got 3 books, each 100 pages, you know, focusing on that topic. And you'll find things like this where, you know, in our industry, and say for example in the software industry, there's a very short series of books you can get, that one that just focuses on HTML5,
Yeah.
one that just focuses on CSS, right? One that just focuses on JavaScript, you know? And it's like the essential, what do you need to know, bare bones about JavaScript in 100 pages, boom.
No, that's
This
a
is
good.
not the JavaScript Bible,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
This is not like everything you ever wanted to know. But yeah, go ahead.
No, that's an excellent point, because like what I'm doing right now is I'm actually working on creating some courses and some videos around my work in iOS development, Mac OS development, using the new Swift UI. And one of the things that I wanted to do was that I was feeling overwhelmed by like, oh, I have to explain all of this stuff. And then I decided, you know what I want to do? One, that's not fun for me. And two, that's sort of misses the mark. So I
Right.
decided to do like these minimal viable programs, and just to tackle enough to help you create a particular type of app. So basically, we're not going to cover all of the language features. We're not going to cover everything within the framework. We're going to cover just enough that you can do to accomplish delivering a complete product, right?
Yes.
And so I think that can be very helpful in terms, and then out of that, I can do some quick takes, right? For instance, I can do quick takes on, for instance, property wrappers or access control. So you can say like, okay, what's the difference between public and private? What's the difference between internal? You know, what's the, you know, all these kinds of things. But those are little nuggets that would fit within that larger sort of bigger nugget, if you will, of
That's
like,
right.
hey, I just want to make, like, for instance, my Menio del Dia, this app just helps you find local places to eat lunch, you know, delicious lunches in
Very
Medellin. So
useful.
it's like really compartmentalized.
Yes.
But I like this idea, helping to focus on smaller, deliverable, valuable things. As you said, everybody doesn't want to read War and Peace. And as much as I enjoy the Snyder Cut, everybody doesn't want to watch a 4-hour epic movie
That's right.
about superheroes, right?
That's
So it's
right.
like, let's condense this thing down. And that's the reason why episodic TV exists, right?
That's
You
right.
condense it down to 30 minutes, you get enough of that story. You can always come back and get the further adventures or more information, but it's digestible for people who just want enough for right now, and then they can come back and get more.
I like that comparison with episodes, because it literally does feel like that. You get a taste of what you're looking for. You get enticed about, well, what's going to happen next, and you know, yeah, I can take a break right now. I could watch some tomorrow, or you know, or whatnot. But if I wanted to, you know, watch the next two or whatever, I'm able to do that as well. And in that way, I get a little bit of what I need and a kind of hook to further things. The other thing that, as you were talking, I got reminded of was when I'm trying to solve a problem and I do a Google search, my problem is very specific. It's never like general, you know. I don't ever Google how to write software, right? I don't ever, you know, do how to, you know, do something very general. I'm always like looking for, how do I connect this app to a MySQL database? Okay. Um, and so what I'm looking for is MySQL information about connection. And so somebody will have written a blog post that says, connecting your app to MySQL in PHP, in C Sharp, in Swift, in whatever it is, and very specific. And I'll be able to kind of drill down, okay, this is what exactly I'm looking for, because they microblogged it,
Yeah.
right? I generally don't get links to O'Reilly's book, chapter 7, section 2, paragraph 3, and that's where it's talking about the MySQL connections. No, I get somebody's blog,
Yeah.
right? I get somebody's blog who had this problem, who wanted to share how she or he solved it. And there it is. There's a little code snippet that I can borrow some ideas from and then go. And so same thing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's definitely sort of the way that the internet is structured in terms of like search engines, right? It definitely drives you to a specific answer. And if you create something that addresses a specific problem, like if I'm trying to draw, like I actually did post this in a group and I wanted to learn how to draw, but it's like specifically drawing on an iPad with an Apple Pencil,
Mm.
kind of thing. And then I got very specific answers from people responding. It's like, okay, these are the tools that you can use to do that. And then there's some tutorials and whatnot. So having knowing that like you can provide this information that's very specific and very what's the word I'm looking for, like very selective sort of position to answer a specific question, I guess, for lack of a better group of words, to just address the need that someone's looking for. So that quick take can do that. It's like you can say, okay, this is about, for instance, I just did one on just the overall structure of a weekly, like your weekly planning, which is just hit
Mhm.
4 major points, right? I just want you to plan, I want you to prioritize, I want you to execute, and then I want you to adjust. And then that's it. And we can deep dive into each one of those things, but
Mhm.
just providing that overall structure, I think for a lot of people is enough, because a lot of people can take that and run with it. So they're not depending on me. I like this idea because they don't depend on me or anyone else to finish the long drawn out blog post. It's like, here's the
Exactly.
nugget that you can go with. Lots of people are like, got it, I'm good. And then they can continue on. So
That's
um,
right.
this is a great, helpful, handy technique for anyone who wants to share sort of things that they're working on, their creative process, any processes that they feel like can help someone, and you feel a little intimidated or stalled by this idea of like, oh, I have to create this large thing. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. You can boil it down to the basic nuggets and just make that available and share that with people. You can always come back and revisit it and drill in on the whole thing or one part of it.
Yeah, if there's a concern about like kind of commercializing this, it doesn't need to be on your blog. It could be in a course that you sell. Where each step in the course is a 5-minute nugget, or a 10-minute nugget, whatever makes sense. It could be part of an ebook or PDF that you sell. So it's not like the quick take kind of reveals some of your best ideas,
Secret sauce.
secret sauce too early, too often, and all of this.
Yeah.
Put it in some, you could always put it in something and then sell that. But I think it's always an act of generosity
Yeah.
to share a little bit about what you're thinking and how you're working and that whole process, because it helps everybody. It helps the audience. It helps um, you know you especially, because it's a feedback loop, because now you've had to kind of put those ideas in the format of a teacher teaching, and
Yes.
um, not just for your own use.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, that when you have to communicate it externally, it forces you to think about clarity. It forces you to think about how you're presenting this idea, because now other people have to receive it and they have to understand it. So it makes you really go through the process of make sure you understand it, and not
That's
just
right.
understand it, but understand it in a way that you can actually communicate to the other people. So even that, I think, is a great exercise. So I think we'll leave it here. I think this is enough of a nugget with quick takes that people can take this and move forward with. I think it's great. Everyone listening, we will be continuing to make these types of things. Click like if you are really into this, and we'll do more. We'll do as many. Put comments if you want to hear us talk about specific topics in the creative space. And one of the things that you'll learn later is like we are working on various things. We have various types of projects, so we're kind of all over the place in terms of creativity and the types of things that we're doing. So just stick around, subscribe if you really. It's a little early, but you know, subscribe anyway. There's more of this coming. So thank you for coming and thank you for watching and coming along with us on this journey.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.